Glen's joining us on the Western Pizza guest hotline. Like I said, he's traveling today. He's a traveling man. Suits, my first question, I got to say, when AJ Ouellette was held to 9 yards in that Calgary game, I would have loved to hit the action on that. But if you would have told me that Brady Oliveira would have under 25 yards in the Labor Day Classic, I wouldn't have taken that bet. I would have thought that was crazy talk. But let's start there with how the Riders were able to, I guess, stop the run, and then maybe Winnipeg abandons it a bit.
Well, that's probably due to reputation. You know, sometimes when your D-line and front seven is playing as well as the Riders have been over the entire season, really, you come in thinking, well, everyone's talking about Brady Oliveira. They're really good against the run. We'll just start going play action, and why beat your head against a brick wall? And you can almost talk yourself out of, as a coach, I think, what you do well. You can talk yourself out of it. You can say, well, we got to change what we do because of how good they are at stopping it. And, I think that's where you get in trouble. I think you do what is your strength until the other team shuts it down somehow, and then you have to evolve from there. But, yeah, I think it's a combination of both. One is between the Saskatchewan defense and the Calgary Stampeder defense, well, you're 1 and 1A, and it depends on what province you're in when you're talking about who's the best there. I think if defenses win championships, as they say, then we're looking at a collision course to see whose defense is the best in a playoff game in the West Division between those two teams.
Maz, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, I guess it depends on where your transfer payments are coming from, Saskatchewan or Alberta. But I knew you were going there.
Hey, Suits, one thing I found uncharacteristic on Saturday, and to me that was almost an early TSN turning point, was final minute, first half, Bombers driving. It's 2nd and 1, and instead of bringing in Chris Streveler and getting that first down, moving the chains, and keeping the drive alive, they opt to throw or try and throw on 2nd down, and Zach Collaros gets sacked, hence moves them back 4 or 5 yards, and they miss the field goal. To me, that was very un-Mike O'Shea-like, because people were talking about the Coach Mace out-coached O'Shea, and I'm like, well, there were instances there where O'Shea didn't help himself. What did you think of that play when it happened?
Yeah, it's again one of those ones where you think that sort of that mystique, or as we've been saying it for the last couple of weeks, the cloak of invincibility that the Bombers have had for these last 5 years has slowly disappeared and is really not there right now. That doesn't mean they're still not a good team. I heard you guys off the top, and I couldn't agree more, that they are still a very talented, good team with a veteran Hall of Fame quarterback and an excellent run game, and guys that can blow things up on defense like Willie Jefferson. So they are still a contender. There's no question. But that mystique is gone, and their formula is now sort of with everyone else. It's not the Bomber formula used to be strong running game, finish games in the fourth quarter with a strong running game, and be real physical on the offensive and defensive lines. Win the turnover battle, which they have been struggling with all year. In fact, they went into the Labor Day game, I think, 8th in the league at a -8, and turnovers hurt them again, especially in the final play of the game. So you're looking at already two things that they used to be part of their formula, and their automatic is no longer there. And, again, I don't know if it was reputation or, the talk of the town, or what influenced their decisions in some of the play calling, and to not get Brady Oliveira involved earlier than they did and more often than they did. That's just not the way the Bombers have won in the past. But I think they're with the rest of the team now. They're with the rest of the league. They got to, figure out new ways.
Where I was sitting and I was around people, and they were kind of thinking the same as me, especially early. I'm like, wow, we gotta try and push this downfield a bit. And I get that the Bombers are playing a defense which doesn't lend to that. And I almost felt, Suits, that the Bombers were going at it defensively against the Riders. Like, okay, we're gonna try and shut down AJ as much as we can, and then we're gonna play right into what Trevor Harris's strength is. Just let him dink and dunk and see how patient he can be. Like, they didn't really give us a chance to go deep, and Harris didn't take much on the deep ball.
Yeah, that's what's great about and one of the superpowers of Trevor Harris. I mean, he can throw it deep, and for many of the games that we've seen, those explosives have been there. And and not to mention, when you look ahead, the receiving core that he might have in 2 weeks is going to be pretty impressive. But for this game, you're right. Trevor can be patient. If you're wanting to make him patient and throw it into the flats and get 5 on first down and then 7 yards on second down and keep moving the chains that way, then he is more than happy to do that. Whatever it takes and whatever the evolution of a game might look like, he's going to be there to do it. That doesn't mean he'll be mistake-free. That doesn't mean he won't get sacked and things like that. It just means that he's on top of that angle of it, the cerebral part of it. And he was, again, I think the Bombers probably had to change their defensive strategy a little bit. I didn't talk in depth with Coach O'Shea about this, but they probably had to. They've had some injuries in the back end in their secondary. Vavel has gone now from a special teams guy to starting on D at the corner and still playing special teams. That is very taxing for a DB. So, I'm sure they were sort of straying a little bit from their normal defensive game plan because of those injuries. But again, there's no excuse. Every team's had different injuries in different positions, and you have to overcome those.
Suits, on the show last week, you brought up a couple of great points to do with Brett Lothar, the kicking, the making some, the missing some, how that can lead to confidence with teammates. But then the bigger point in that conversation is you had said, when it starts affecting the play call from the head coach of how you're attacking the game. Now, for a lot of us, before the punt, which turned out to be, we're like, that could have been field goal territory to seal the game, to salt things away. So they don't even get a chance to come back. They're all as that. Lothar misses an extra point early. When that happens, is it here we go again? Luckily, it didn't come down to that, but there it is. It's still an issue. It didn't bite us in the you-know-where, but it reared its ugly head again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been there for a while, and it hasn't been an issue because they've won despite of it. We all know the story. We've talked about it at length, but that's my point. I think when, as we discussed last week, when you're starting to play call and manage a game in Corey Mace's position, that alters it because you don't have confidence in your kicker. I mean, let's be frank. That situation screamed for a field goal attempt of 51 yards. You make it 2 possession, it's game over right there. So that's the conventional wisdom, and the right call is to put your field goal team on the field. I think it would have been about a 51-yarder, and you make it a 2-possession game. Now, 51 is not a gimme, so there is some possibility of a miss there on the field goal, but that's the call. I mean, that is conventional wisdom. That is the call you make. You put your field goal team out. He makes a 51-yarder. It's game over. It's 2 possessions, and there's no chance for a Bomber comeback. They didn't do that, and it just appears to me from the outside looking in that it's because they're just not confident in him to make those. Mm-hmm. So, in my opinion, now it becomes the rest of the locker room is also looking and watching this.
Yeah.
And if the rest of the locker room says to themselves, well, okay, if Brett's still kicking when we go to Winnipeg, then that means that I can miss 3 or 4 tackles every game as a DB, or I can drop 2 passes a game as a receiver, and I'll get half a season to work out of my slump. Like, you can't change rules for people. I know Brett's had some, he had his pregnant wife that he was worried about, and I'm so glad that they're have the new child, and they're all happy and healthy. And Brett's a fantastic human being, and I don't think you cut Brett. I think you now have to look at maybe the injured list so no one can steal him, and give Campbell Fair an opportunity.
Yeah. That's
when it changes the game management for your head coach because you're just not confident in him, I think that's probably beyond the point where you should have made a change.
Though, yeah, you kind of answered the next two questions I was going to ask. I was going to ask you, what do you think the mood is in the locker room, which you kind of touched on that. And then you mentioned 51 isn't automatic, unless you're Jose Maltos in Montreal. But I think, again, casual fan here, not to get on a soapbox and be like, hey, I get to talk sports for 3 hours. I know everything about the game, because that's not the case. I think this is the game that they maybe go to Campbell Fair coming up in Winnipeg. Am I crazy?
No, you're not. I would agree. And again, I would go if I was Corey Mays to Brett, and I would say, just keep working at perfecting your game. Just keep working on it, and we may need you again. So we're going to put you on the injury list. You're going to keep getting your paycheck, and keep working on your game. But we're going to try the young kid because, I think you have a responsibility as a head coach at this level. Like this isn't college even, where your kicker's your kicker and you try to work with them to get out of the slump, and you can't make changes. This is pro, and it's a result oriented business, and Brett knows that. And I'll give you guys a quick story. The closest that I came to this kind of thing was when Don Matthews was our head coach. And I was in the training room after 2 bad games in a row. And I'm sitting there getting ice on my ankle. And Don Matthews walks in and he says, here's what I can tell you, Glenn. If you have one bad game, I wouldn't even come and talk to you about it. It's a one-off. Everybody has one. Don't worry about it. Recover for the next game. That's all I care about. If you have 2 in a row, we're going to talk, and this is becoming habit forming. And if you have 3 in a row, you're not going to be able to have a 4th. And, I think it's a different scenario with Brett in being that sort of abrupt with him. And I don't think coaches even talk to players anymore like that. Although it drove home the point to me in a very open and true way that if I don't have a good game this coming up, I'm not going to be able to go out there and have a 4th attempt. Mm-hmm. So I think we're there now. I like Brett. I've been saying for months now that I think he can work out of this. But if you're making a decision to not kick a field goal in that opportunity to get it a 2-point or a 2-possession game because you don't have confidence in your kicker, it's time to make a change.
Saturday, the rematch. A whole other ball of wax because you've been to both. The intensity just seems to ramp up there. And if they are going to put in Campbell Fair, well, hey kid, yeah, here's a bit of a situation. Craziest stadium on the road. Your first chance as a Rider. Let's hope it all works out. Glenn, when the Riders go to Winnipeg, something happens. The switch flips at times. The Bombers dominate. The crowd's going to be nuts. I think as Rider fans, a lot of us don't realize just how intense that stadium is. You're probably our closest connection to that. Saturday's a whole other ball game, isn't it?
It's the hardest 2 points of the regular season for the Riders, and it doesn't matter what the records have been or would be, or if the Riders have had a great record and the Bombers a terrible one. That game in the rematch is the toughest win of the regular season, and it's just an intensity thing, and often it's coming off a win on Labor Day for the Riders. So that is part of the equation here because you're on such a high. It was such a great intensity, and Labor Day and Sunday, and the stadium was jam-packed, and everyone talked about it all week, and you won the game. So that lingers a little bit, and it's tough to switch it back on to get back to the intensity level you're going to need for the rematch. And I always felt like when I played in it, the Bombers just were more intense in the first quarter of the second game. So it was like we got to catch up to their level of intensity here. And so, I know they'll talk about it. You can't really practice it. You'll just have to see if it happens when they get there. And the Riders have a great defense, so they should be able to hang around. And if you hang around on the road in any game, you've got a chance to win in the end. So I'm not saying the Bombers should walk over in this game, but this is the toughest 2 points of the regular season. And I'll give you a quick stat that is sort of, it goes through the whole season, but Nick Dembski, who Zach Collaros calls their best player, he says that Dembski is their MVP on offense, and he's the best player on their football team. And I asked him, I said, that's really high praise. I mean, you're going overboard here, aren't you? And he goes, no, Nick Dembski is our best football player. And Nick Dembski at home averages about 90 yards a game at home. On the road, it's 43 or something like that. Like, they just love playing in front of the sellout crowd at home. And, when their best players are elevating their game like that at home, you've seen Zach Collaros' record at home. I mean, we're talking about a team that is tough to beat, even though they're not the same Bombers as the last 5 years. That's going to be the toughest 2 points of the regular season for the Riders.
Can I ask you, I call it the Tyler Lockett play. And I think it's brilliant. And the Seattle Seahawks, love him or hate him, they were really good at it. Russell Wilson, he would just toss the ball up to Tyler Lockett when there was probably not a lot of chance that they were going to get the first down on third and whatever, Canadian game, second and whatever. And you just hope you draw the PI call. I totally think this is such a veteran move by Dembski. The ref bought it. Yeah, Ford's maybe in the wrong there a bit. I think this is 70% of this play call is to do exactly that, Glenn.
Well, that's the veteran in Nick Dembski. I actually said it while we were calling the game in the booth that, I wasn't trying to suggest that Dembski drew the penalty and should have got what's the call in hockey when you pretend to fall over?
Diving, unsportsmanlike conduct. Yeah.
An unsportsmanlike diving. I wasn't suggesting that, but it was really subtle. It was the veteran move by Dembski. He's doing a deep post. He doesn't think he can reach the ball. He slows down as Jackson Ford is trying to close and running full speed at him, and Jackson doesn't make that same reaction. He doesn't notice it in time, and he runs right over him. It was pass interference, so they had to call it, but it was drawn by Nick Dembski because he's a veteran. He knew he couldn't reach it, and he just geared it down enough so that whomever was the DB was going to run over him. It's like when Tom Cruise said, just throw on the brakes and that jet will fly right by. And then now you're behind him and in a chance to knock him down. But, you're totally right. And how about one other call? We got to get to this. And again, it was a call made because probably partly of the lack of confidence in Lawther, but the quick kick by Trevor Harris, he executed that to perfection. But a lot could have gone wrong there. I'm telling you, a lot. Like people might say, well, it was a 51-yarder, so that's not a gimme. So I like the Trevor Harris play because of the way it worked out, and that's exactly what you want to happen. And but you're asking your quarterback to drop kick it almost and do it with that same distance that he would be in shotgun. So a D lineman could have penetrated, a blitzing linebacker could have hit him right in the chest as he was trying to kick it. That ball could have flopped around. He could have missed it.
It could have been a disaster.
You only practiced that. Yes, that could have been an absolute disaster. And probably cost them the game. And to go to that play ahead of Lawther, and I don't mean to bring that up again, but I was so impressed by this 39-year-old quarterback. Is he 39 now? 39-year-old quarterback drop kicking it to the goal line on a key moment in the game to give the team a chance to win. I was like, oh my God.
You know who used to do that? You know who used to do that, Glenn? And again, NFL, Belichick and Brady. But you know when they used to punt it? They used to punt it on third down. I think Brady's got 2 punts in his career. One definitely is on third down. They knew they weren't going to make it, and they just surprised him with a punt. I loved the play. Yeah, a lot could go wrong there, but a lot could go wrong with anything when you break down football. I was like, ballsy. That is definitely something they don't practice in open practices, though, eh, Glenn?
No, they don't. And they don't call it, and partly because they weren't confident that a 51-yarder was going to go through the upright. So they decided, we put our punt return team on. They've got a good punt returner. We put our punt return team on. They get a big return. That's a concern. If he kicks it out of bounds or shanks, a lot can go wrong, but that's a play that Trevor did that he probably practiced 3 times all year in a closed practice with nobody watching. He probably tried that 3 or 4 times. That's it. That could have gone really bad really quickly.
Hey, Suits, because the rest of the weekend was crazy. Is there a better, more dangerous 4-win football team? They're 4-8 than the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah.
Because Nick Arbuckle's leading the league in passing with 3,800 yards. If their defense does get a stop, they're the team I don't want to play. If the Grey Cup was tomorrow, I'm sorry, I'll pass on the Argonauts. I'll take Montreal and Hamilton all day long. If I'm a Rider fan and had to play somebody from the East, Toronto, stay away.
Yeah, well, first of all, are we okay now to put Arbuckle in the conversation for MOP? I mean, he's leading all quarterbacks passing the football. He gets Mackay Polk back in the receiving corps. When he put 52 on the BC Lions, now I would suggest that they have the worst defense in the league right now, the Lions. But when Toronto, and I know I'll get a call from my former colleague on that, but when Toronto put 52 on them and looked like they were scoring touchdowns on every drive, he didn't have DeMonte Coxey in the lineup at that time. So Arbuckle was doing that with a backup receiver, with their number one guy out of the lineup. So, I think we now are looking at just respectfully putting Arbuckle in that conversation as one of the top guys in the league, the MOP candidate. The record is what would tarnish that. But you're right, Maz, they're not going away. I mean, the defending champs are figuring it out, and I think probably because they now know that maybe Chad Kelly's not going to return this year. That's the rumors I heard a couple of weeks ago, that there's a question mark as to whether or not he will be able to get back this year. So, maybe that's where the team went, well, this is our guy. We might as well go and get it together. And they get Polk back, and that's big. And that's what I meant about the Riders in the next 2 weeks. Schaefer Baker, a Joe with more playing time, and Emelis all returning to the lineup. It's a good problem for Corey Mace.
Hey, Glenn, we got a couple of questions here on the text line for you. I'll go to this one first. Bob in Regina. Campbell's pick 2 was a first in Rider history. Is that a first in CFL history? Do you know that? I can't see it being the first.
A pick 6 for a 2-point convert?
Yeah, pick 2.
A pick 2, yeah. Well, right, yeah. Pick 2 for a 2-point convert. I'll check on that. I'll get back to him on that. I don't remember one I don't remember one that I was covering or anything like that. I'm trying to think of. I think that there's been interceptions on attempts to win on a 2-point convert. I just don't think they've gone the other way and given the team with the interception the 2 points, and then also, by the way, make that a 4-point lead, which means there was no chance, basically, because all you have to do is get an onside kick with a few seconds left and kick a field goal if they didn't score on that.
Yeah.
And what a play by Campbell.
No doubt. Look
at
these.
His closing speed is off the charts great. I mean, when he has 4 yards to make up on a receiver, he does that as fast as I've ever seen anyone in the league do it. Yeah. It's a long time.
Definitely game planning away from him. Okay, one more quick one here. Where do we go? Brett wants to know how they missed the face mask on AJ.
Yeah, I agree. Brett, you're right. Although I will say this, and not on that play, because that's also a player safety issue, and because a face mask is a player safety issue, and there's two things there. One is they missed it on the field, which is hard to understand why. But okay, let's say they were all blocked; their vision was blocked by other players. But the replay center in a game earlier this year called a penalty on a horse collar tackle in Saskatchewan. I don't even remember the opponent right now, but it was a horse collar tackle, wasn't called on the field, and the replay center called it from Toronto. And I thought if there's ever an example that should happen, it should be on that face mask, because it's a player safety issue. It's a roughing penalty that I think they can call in real time from the command center. So, I was shocked by that one, but I will say this about penalties. I really hate to argue about the flags that they didn't throw, because I'd much rather just have them throw less flags in general.
And this, yeah, exactly. And this is Corey and Weyburn trumps in here. He says 97 playoffs, Calgary returned a 2-point convert on the Riders. There we go.
Yeah,
Corey from Weyburn.
I love our listeners in Saskatchewan, because all we have to do is post a question and they'll have the answer before I can even think of it.
All right. I know you got to get on an airplane. Thanks for doing this a little earlier today, Glenn. We'll talk to you again on Thursday. Hey, when we talk on Thursday, let's talk Can West College University football. Man, there's some great finishes and great games this week. So let's talk about that on Thursday.
Sounds good. Players are coming through at that level too. Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. See you, Glenn. Travel safe.